I'm so pleased to be moderating this panel discussion. You seem so far away from me, but it's nice to have some space on stage. Usually it's a very cramped space. Let me introduce this session. We're talking about demand for gold, and it's remaining very strong worldwide. There are opportunities for mining companies to explore and invest in new regions. Profit margins of gold refineries are impacted in the wake of highly volatile gold markets, followed by economic uncertainties and geopolitical events that lead to fluctuations in demand and supply. So we do have one person joining us virtually. I would love it if we could see him on the screen behind us at some point, if you could beam him on the screen. His Excellency Ambassador Joshua. I will just pose the first question, and whoever feels like they want to address it is free to do so, and we would welcome all of your opinions and insights. I'd like to know how you are really dealing with the strict regulations that govern the gold refining industry. And this is in terms of meeting environmental standards and complying with anti-laundering, money laundering measures. And these obviously require significant investments and a strict compliance system. How are you dealing with these issues?
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for the introduction and to the conference for having us all here. It's a big issue, these issues that you bring up, and I actually think they're welcome, and I think the industry is looking at it quite positively. I think that any improvement in both the standards for compliance and regulation globally is a good thing for the industry as a whole. It will incentivize more people to get involved in the industry if there are simpler processes and methods to be able to actually to become involved, and for investors to be able to understand the improvements that we're seeing in the sector. There's been a lot of negative media and press that's come to the sector over the past. Well, it's been around for a very long time, and I think that the UAE is actually leading the foray into combating these problems and also being very vocal about meaningful ways to make changes. So I think that how is the industry as a whole reacting to this, I think is an interesting question. It's for the people that want to see improvement in the sector and that want to see and that are doing things properly, they're very comfortable with these regulations. So I believe that what it's doing is ultimately weeding out the bad eggs in the sector, in the industry, and it's creating more opportunities for legitimate businesses to become involved within the sector, and ultimately this will benefit the industry as a whole. So I welcome it, and I think it's fantastic. What I will say is that the one thing that industry needs to do is to take meaningful and realistic advances, baby steps, take each day as it kind of comes, but also provide feedback, because a lot of the regulation that's being imposed is coming from groups and bodies that often don't understand the sector and the industry, and they seek feedback and guidance, and we complain about it, but ultimately we're not actually providing any feedback the other way. So I would suggest that everyone openly talks about this, and we'll end up seeing serious progress.
Great suggestion, giving more feedback. Would anyone else like to address the question?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to be in the panel. What our fellow panelists says, there are a lot of regulations and all these things. I think Dubai is a perfect example of that. How the gold industry, as you know, that one of the major trading happens in Dubai. And I think the regulations and is a multicultural environment, and this is a perfect example. And also you mentioned about one thing that I really say, that a lot of industries, the opportunities come and they disturb the real players, and I think it is very important for us to have strict rules and regulations that follow the serious players in their own industry. It doesn't matter, gold or any industry. And that's what really happens, that the opportunities come, they disrupt the market for their own reasons, and then they disappear. And gold is one of those industries, I think, has always been here for centuries, and it's always going to be here. So I think it is very important to say that Dubai is playing a very key role. And I think it will keep playing a key role into trading, into multiple sector trading, and everything else that is I think something we should all follow in the other countries around us.
Absolutely. Meeting these increasingly stringent environmental standards, though, can be very costly, and it may require continuous innovation. Is the industry innovating fast enough, and how can rising costs be minimized?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, that's
Good
fine.
evening,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
I would like to thank you for IBMC for hosting this great event and collaborating with all the different business teams. And it is a great opportunity. My name is Zakir Hussain, and I am a commodity specialist, where I'm not related to this domain, but I would like to say something. Due to mining, how mining is giving the economy boost. Yeah, so that's the most important. So like we say this, mining operators has a big impact in the economy. Yeah, which they provide the jobs. And creating the jobs, they employ the diverse workforce, including engineers, geologists, and safety personnel. Okay, they provide support, services, and maintenance. Yeah, they provide support services like maintenance, catering, and transportation. Also provide the employment. So it boosts the economy, local economy, where they are going to mine the minings. Yeah. So this is important, like mining operations invest in the trainings, which is not only benefiting the mining industries, which is also improve the employability in other sectors, which is again boosting the economy. Okay, mining operations creates the business opportunities for local suppliers and equipments, materials, and services. So again, the local suppliers within the mining community, they get a business to interact with, to boost the business, yeah, to support the business. Yeah. So mining operators engage in community development projects and prioritize the health and safety. Overall, mining operations contribute the development of surrounding community by creating jobs, developing skills, and investing in the community. So this is how these mining sectors will be getting economy boosted in the mining areas. So that's the...
Absolutely. The question was about innovation, but since we've changed the topic, I'll come back to innovation, and I will ask you about the mining operations. They do contribute to local economies by creating job opportunities, not just in the areas that they're in, but in surrounding areas. But do they hinder these economies in any way, the mining operations? Do they hinder? Is there any negative impact to having mining operations to the local economies?
Yeah, if a local economy, yes, if they're short of laborers, short of resources, then they are having a problem, challenges there. Yeah, so that is one of the biggest challenge they face, mining economy.
All right. So let's go back to innovation and meeting increasingly stringent environmental standards. It is costly, it requires continuous innovation. Is the industry innovating fast enough, and how can these rising costs really be minimized?
It's quite difficult when the environmental regulations comes in to follow up for innovation when it comes mining in Africa or other places. The investment is quite heavily, and there are no willing, a lot of people doesn't will to invest in with certain areas that everybody try to play safe. So I would say that it's quite difficult. There is innovation, there is technology, but the question is who can invest if the regularity is in place for them to have a breeze to invest. And we must not forget that Africa, for example, will have rainy season and dry season. So it means in the rainy season, it's very difficult to operate. Maybe the production will be 60-70% less than the dry season. So there is a lot of issue depends on the area, plus the geopolitical issues that you may have, etc.
Would anyone else like to address this?
I want to mention that, what I understand, gold industry, artificial intelligence has been used now, and in a very big way. And I think it's not only this, and they're using a different way of geological reports and everything, using satellites in different ways to find the gold and save the time of anything technology. And also the drone has been used in gold industry. Mining especially.
Yeah, just to add to this, I think innovation is in the sector is going to be driven primarily about new projects. A lot of the old existing projects that are out there, it's going to be very difficult to justify economically making any significant changes to that part of the sector. So I think that industry, as well as the regulatory bodies and other stakeholders that are out there, are going to be the ones that have to drive that innovation and push for new technologies, new ideas to be implemented into new parts of the mining sector. And there are innovations that are going place, but we have to remember that this process is pretty rudimentary. What we're actually doing. We're digging something out of the ground. We then have to extract whatever valuable items are contained within that ore, and then hopefully we have to fix that. Well, we have to transport it and move it to another place, and hopefully fix the ground and the landscape and not cause too much destruction while we do it. So that process, there's not that much that you can actually do aside from perhaps change the technologies itself, improve the processing of the ore itself to make it more environmentally sustainable and efficient, and perhaps the impact might actually come in transportation and logistics. There's a significant portion of pollution that comes from the precious metals sector. We think about that. We're not putting it on a ship and it's not taking 45 days to get somewhere. Okay, maybe you'll do that with silver, but with precious, you're putting it on an aeroplane. So and you're shipping it to that final destination. You're using vehicles to do the transport. So perhaps other areas within the supply chain are going to be considered as major contributors to carbon emissions and so forth. And I think that's probably where we'll see the most differences happen over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And surely if there is a return on investment to these innovations and their application in mining, people will begin to invest, but we just need to see that ROI. We just need to see a couple of brave entrepreneurs or startups, raise some funding for these types of initiatives.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's been such a focus on this over the past, over the previous decade, and particularly in light of COP28. I mean, Mr. Rhodes' presentation earlier today highlighted one of the projects that our company is that's embarking on. And, there are businesses that are, like ours, that are trying to do similar things within the sector, whether it's innovate and find new methods for leaching or reagents or whatever that might be. And there are groups that are trying to make these impacts. The biggest issue has been that most of them are not economical. So they've actually been led by sponsors, organisations like, they're out there, the UN or other bodies that non-government organisations. And so most of these projects aren't economical. So therefore, it hasn't attracted the international investors. But I think that we're starting to see more of a focus on that ROI in the absence of other significant investment opportunities.
Absolutely, especially as industries are being held accountable for their actions now more than ever. Let's talk a little bit about supply chain. The dependence on steady supply of gold-bearing materials like mined ore or recycled electronics can expose refineries to supply chain disruptions. What are these supply chain issues you're facing, and how can these disruptions be minimized?
I think Jeffrey, with his presentation, he was very specific, and he did cover all this subject. I don't know if you want to add something on the top.
Sure. So supply chain, I think that, look, I preach to everyone who listen within the firm, which is probably just Jeffrey at this moment, but it's stability and consistency of supply is the key for any trading house, for any refinery, and any institution that's involved within the supply chain where you're making money out of marketing from that, right? Because ultimately, what a refinery is doing, they're transforming one thing that's an unrefined metal into a refined metal that can be easily traded, right? So stable and consistent supply is critical There are, I suppose, we've had quite significant political hurdles to get over. Russia was a major, or is a major, gold-producing country, and obviously with the financial sanctions that have taken place there, we've seen supply chain disruptions, but ultimately that metal will end up somewhere, right? So I just think all you're seeing is a shift in perhaps the locations that are actually taking those supplies. I mean, it's not that the supply is just disappearing. You know, it's showing up somewhere else. I think the biggest supply disruption will take place with mining companies if they don't get access to financing and proper project financing in the future. We're not seeing new mines come online as a result of investment into that sector, and also I would say for refineries in particular. I mean, the end users and the industrial producers, if refineries don't stay on top of their game in respect to ensuring their own supply chain and governance standards are met, they won't no longer be able to work within the sector, and we'll see much more competition within that side of the industry. So I think prices will end up becoming a lot tighter on the retail and industrial end.
We were talking about supply chain. I was surprised to when I found out that the #1 mining facility is in Nevada, USA. And the second is Uzbekistan, and then third is Russia. We always think Africa is more gold producer or mining, but USA and Uzbekistan and Russia are the ones, that really producing. But I was also understand that, the gold is very limited under our feet, that is till 2050. They say that after that, the supply of gold would be a very tough thing to get it out, or mining, I would say. So we all have to very value this precious commodity at this time.
I want to add that we mentioned about funding, which is one of the main issues in the market at the moment, find funding within Africa and etc. So officially, it was announced a few weeks ago from His Excellency the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia that PIF itself will invest over $25 billion within till 2040, the new vision. And within 2030, we're going to spend around $5 billion in Africa itself. Already it's been signed for $500 million for infrastructure. But saying that from 2024, 40 new embassies will be opened within Africa. And the mission is to invest within $5 billion in 2030, the vision. So there is a market, funding is coming, regulation has to be in place. So it's a good news, I'll see it from my side.
So as these accessible deposits are depleted, miners may need to explore more challenging and deeper ore bodies, requiring advanced mining technologies. Are you being impacted by depleting deposits, and how are you tackling this issue? Perhaps it's something that technology could help with. Perhaps the AI can help us find the gold.
Not so sure about that. I think it's a little bit of a tricky one. I think we might go to space. There's lots of gold out there as well. Media mining, I think that's been discussed over the years. But look, ultimately it'll come down to cost, right? Cost of extraction versus recycling and recovering precious metals from industrial waste, scraps, the jewelry industry or technology. So I think that we'll see far more of a push towards recycling. Again, there's been a lot of gold that's been produced, and it's not like it's disappearing. It exists out there. It's being put to use in other industrial processes and so forth, and that demand will continue. So I think we'll just see an increase in recovery, and ultimately it'll be a race to the bottom of whatever the cheapest extractive option is going to be. But yeah, I'm hopeful for space. I think that's a big one.
I think space is a bit of a ways away, but yes. Anyone else would like to comment on this?
I think he's the expert on technicality. So
yeah, he is the expert.
Take over.
In addition to that, we in the supply chain, you need to have the governance of the robust risk management in order to mitigate the risk for the supply chain. So that's the most important. Yeah, this is one of the things we need to have, risk management.
So how can we best facilitate better risk management?
Yeah, risk management, see, for example, now supply chain, as he is very rightly said, there is a geopolitical issues. And due to pandemic, we suffered, there is a transportation logistic issue came across in the world. These things, if we have the right risk management team, they will analyze and they will resource the they will be resourcing in the right place the mining and supply chain projects, so that they will make sure that the supply chain will not affect. So if I need to do resource management here in Dubai, so I'll make sure here there is no war, no COVID, no transportation issue. So I'm very happy to do resourcing here rather than doing in somewhere else where it is happening geopolitical issue. Yeah. So these are all the risk factor. It has to be addressed.
But these geopolitical events are actually black swan events. So nobody knew that this was going to erupt in Gaza and, before October 7th, for example. So there is no guarantee. There's no way to...
uncertainties. Yes, sometimes you have cases. But I think number one is the management. As far as you have a good management, a good operator, you have deliveries. It's what you pay is what you get. So management for me is number one, to minimize the risks.
How can refiners really explore diversification and expansion? Should refineries explore additional services like assaying and minting or customizing refining solutions to diversify their revenue streams?
I think it's the only option. I mean, the most successful refineries globally that we see, majority of the LBMA refineries, it's as a result of their diversification into other business lines that have made them sustainable businesses. They're not reliant on one method of distribution or distributing their products. They're not reliant on one set of products like minted coins or cast bars and so forth. You take a group like Heraeus, they're one of the biggest catalyst producers in the world as well, and I think that's one of the I believe it's one of the most profitable parts of their business lines. But they started off as in the precious ultimately in the precious sector, and they're one of the biggest gold refineries in the world too. So yeah, they need to expand their the products that they're offering, and I think that investment into research and development will be a key part of reaching or being able to achieve that. Oh, and one more thing, I think there'll be a lot more consolidation within the industry too. So what we'll see is a lot of these refineries that will be that are out there, these smaller players that might be in strategically important locations. I think that we will end up seeing the M&A activity within the sector increase quite significantly, and I think that for the first time refineries will be some of those targets for vertical integration for mining companies or so forth. So I think that there's a bit more of that too.
Do you agree that refineries should diversify revenue streams, gentlemen?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And because I represent United Nations also in UAE, I would say the mining should be sustainable mining. They have to use electric vehicles or electric equipments or any way it is to sustain themselves. So I like to give this message across, especially when the COP28 is happening, and we were involved. I was personally involved for last 12 days, as ended today. That we have seen so many things discussed there, and I think on sustainability and resilience and different things. And I think we all have to contribute our share into.
Do you feel that mining and refining sectors can contribute to sustainability?
Yes, definitely.
How so? Give us some examples.
Well, I mean, they have to, follow the environment, the local environment. See, the sustainability is something that, how Africa works, how the East works, how the West works, So there will be multiple ways that I think they can really sustain themselves. And sustainability is definitely is one word I think that address everybody's attention currently. Yeah.
When you have a mining business while you are in Africa, for example, the mining companies, they pay some money to the government. So the government also has to be, it's a chain of things. They have to invest on the infrastructure. Everybody has to involve. If they don't do that, then it will not work.
Okay, thank you very much to our panelists today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you for sharing.